Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers take care of business in game one, a two-way thorough beatdown of the Toronto Raptors. The week of preparation pays off as they just seem to know exactly what the Raptors were going to do and how to attack it. Joining me today is my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Man, no mercy. Felt like a really disciplined, focused effort. If you were worried about any of these bits and bobs, it felt like a really reassuring game for those who were coming into this playoffs with a bit of insecurity. You know, I think part of the reason I picked Cavs in 6 in this series was I thought there was a really good chance that they could lose this game. Afternoon game, weird rhythm, kind of the underdog special in a lot of ways. And then you come out of the first quarter and a lot of stuff is going right for the Raptors. You know, they're shooting the cover off the ball. Shad and Barnes go like 6 of 6 from 3 in the first quarter. Guys who, you want to leave open. And I think where I want to start this podcast, Justin, is what a win I thought this was for game plan discipline. These guys played the same way all the way through and just kind of waited for the dam to break. And that's exactly what happened in the third quarter. Raptors had like 6 points with five and a half minutes left in the quarter. The game blew open at that point, but I felt like it was just going to be a matter of time if they held on and continued to control the terms of which the game were played. And that's exactly what they did.
I think that's the perfect place to start here because we talked about it coming into the playoffs, right? When you get hit in the mouth, when things aren't necessarily going your way, do you stick with what you're doing, right? Do you fall back on some old habits? How do you respond in those situations? And I think there was a lot of things that Toronto threw at them that we've seen either this version of the Cavs or previous versions of the Cavs lose a little bit of composure, right? Like Toronto was really applying a lot of pressure up front at the point of attack, right? They were the really high pickup points, trying to make the Cavs uncomfortable, trying to kind of hit their offense with physicality. And for the majority of this game, Cleveland continued to have that off-ball movement. The cutters were sharp. They didn't get stagnant. They didn't get rattled. When you have two not good three-point shooters in Scotty Barnes and Jamal Shedd shoot 8 of 10 combined from 3, that's the type of thing that, hey, maybe you start to scramble. You're closing out and you're abandoning your game plan defensively, reacting to the result instead of the process. I thought the Cavs did a good job of not falling victim to that bait, right? Like Scotty Barnes is a 30% three-point shooter. Jamal Shedd is a 32% three-point shooter. Those guys going 8 of 10 in a game where the Raptors, got blown out. I think that's a really, really encouraging sign when you're looking at process over results. But one of the things we talked about was this team has, the week between the regular season and game one to prepare, to treat it as a mini training camp. And I thought the points of emphasis were all on the money, right? They kept the Raptors out of transition. The only transition field goal that the Raptors had all game was CMB's late dunk in garbage time. They did not get a transition opportunity there. The Cavs won the point in the paint battle. What were our points of emphasis, Carter? If whichever team gets downhill the most consistently and whichever team controls the pace was going to win, the Cavs absolutely dominated and took the Raptors completely out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly won the possession battle, forced 17 turnovers to their 15. To your point, you look at a 15 turnover game and normally you don't feel that good about it. You're not like apoplectic, but you don't feel that good about it. So few live ball turnovers where the Raps were jumping passing lanes. Like, if anything, the turnovers where the Cavs tried to squeeze a pass into a big and they had to step out of bounds to catch it, or one of the guards dribbled it off his foot or lost the handle. But it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was the Raptors pressure that was knocking them out of rhythm. And yeah, I mean they just kind of knew what their plan was, and they finished in tight quarters. They were able to shoot the ball very, very well, which was great. Obviously, a great shooting performance from James Donovan and Max to really carry them uh, on on that front. And then, like as the game went on, things just loosened up, and the driving lanes opened up, and there was just I thought the Raptors did a really nice job in that first quarter, pushing, pulling, grabbing. Stopping Jarrett and Evan from setting clean picks at the point of attack, forcing those screens higher and higher and higher. Which whoops, that actually played super into the Cavs' favor, given their guards a big runway as we got deeper into the game. But even in that first quarter, where I was like, hey, they're doing a pretty good job. The Cavs had 35 points. It was their second highest scoring quarter of the game, and it just kind of did feel like a little bit of a there. And you got to be really careful after a game one, not getting too high. But like, there was a lot of confirmation bias if you were to be found if you were someone who thought the Raptors were going to have a hard time in this series.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to fall victim to that confirmation bias, but the reality is so much of this is execution, right? If you get tired and the Raptors' physicality at the point of attack baits you into kind of lazier possessions, these games and quarters can go very differently, right? Like, this doesn't mean, oh, this is going to be a sweep. I absolutely expect Toronto to have adjustments, but I thought even from an in-game adjustment standpoint, this was one of the more mature performances from the Cavs, right? I think when BI and Scotty were trying to drive to the basket, for the most part, I thought the Cavs did a very good job there. But I thought Toronto did the right thing, which is, hey, BI or Scotty are driving. Let's try to have some weak side cutting here, right? They got an opportunity early in the game where Don just kind of fell asleep and RJ beat him. I think it was Scotty that found him.
It was.
But there weren't many of those opportunities after the fact, right? Like, we sharpened it up. Hey, we made a mistake there, but let's not let that compound. I thought that it was a really, really mature defensive performance from them. And to your point about, the Raptors grabbing it and stuff up above the 3-point line, I thought the Cavs were prepared for what Toronto was going to do defensively. They knew what was going to happen there, right? Whether that's, hey, we're going to have, some horn sets here. We're going to have two guys screening, and we're going to have, Max Strus or Jalen Tyson or whoever it is kind of slip and get downhill. Those possessions were incredibly effective. They were able to beat the pressure in those situations. And outside of a stretch in the second quarter where I think it was both Dennis and Harden out there, I thought that the offense kept moving throughout the night. It didn't feel stagnant at any point. And to their credit, when we went Harden and Schroeder later on in the fourth quarter, I thought that it looked a lot better.
Much better shift.
I thought that the offense kept its pace and its momentum. Dennis got to the basket. So I really felt like there were those in-game adjustments or kind of clocking mistakes or things that aren't working well, whether that's, the players picking that up, whether that's the coaching staff, when you go back there and review stuff on the iPad. I'm sure it's a collective effort here, but I thought it was a really, really good, mature performance from this team.
Yeah, man. It much better than a 13-point victory based on the eye test. And even in that second quarter where they, I think they got the lead up to 7. It would have been 10 if RJ didn't hit the buzzer beater to end the quarter. I did feel like they just had the game in hand. And the only thing we'll start pivoting to some individual performances here in a minute. But like, the one thing that I was thinking about was, all right, we've got the terms of engagement. If we stay on this, we'll be good. And sometimes you'll look at a 7-point lead or a 6-point lead, and you see a lot of stuff going right for them, a lot of stuff not going right for you, and you go, oh well, we'll definitely, if we hold the line, we'll blow this thing open. But the thing is, a team this under construction still doesn't always hold the line. Sometimes they start overreacting. Sometimes you forget who you are for a minute. This Cavs team has literally done that in the last month and a half of the regular season. In these spots where I'm like, they're playing fine. Oh crap, they let go of the rope and stopped playing fine.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't do that, I don't know how much of that is just playoff focus. I don't know how much of that is the week of prep. But again, it's the kind of mature performance that you need to have against a team that probably feels like, man, we played about as well as we could have within that style, and it still didn't go well.
To what you said towards the end of the season, where you're like, how much are we kind of discounting the injuries that the Cavs have had, right? Like, how much of that are we kind of overlooking in this conversation? I do think that this is the first time that they had their full rotation might be part of the equation as well, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think it's necessarily a surprise that when you're able to use kind of a tighter rotation and use your ideal lineup combinations, that you would look better, right? Like, you're able to weather the storm where Jalen Tyson has a bad first shift where he gets into foul trouble. You can go to an option that you actually were planning to go to at some point in this game anyways, versus, hey, now, Tyrese Proctor or Craig Porter Jr. or Naquan Tomlin have to come in, right? I think that makes a big difference in this scenario for sure. But I do want to give kind of the first big scoop of credit to James Harden, because I think this game showed the correct balance when it came to an offensive initiation standpoint. I thought the amount that Harden was initiating the offense was perfect. And I think this was one of those showcases of, his brand of physical basketball really being well suited for these types of matchups where Toronto is throwing a lot of physicality and it doesn't move him off of his spots, right? Like, not only does it not cause him to, pick up the basketball or to turn his back to the defender and kind of, try to shield it. He's able to weather the contact, get to that second level of the defense, get into the teeth of the defense, and create opportunities for everybody else. Toronto didn't allow him, or he didn't allow Toronto to speed him up. And I thought his decision making for the most part was phenomenal throughout the night. I just thought it was a really, really mature performance. And I think it's really important that your primary offensive initiator set the tone for how the team is going to behave. I thought that this was one of those examples where the leadership of James Harden was a big, big part of how the Cavs were able to weather the storm and weather the blows that Toronto was throwing at them.
Yeah, I thought he was phenomenal. Another freaking game where he doesn't get to the line a lot, even though he's getting beat up pretty bad. He only got 2 free throws in this game.
Which is weird given how tight that, Tony Brothers and the crew were.
Yeah, there were 35
it.
free throw attempts for the Raptors and 28 for the Cavs in a game that featured no intentional fouls. That's a lot. 63 to my very fast math. So Harden only getting 2 of the 63 attempts is pretty bananas. But whatever. I mean, it goes to show that he can still be really helpful, even on a night where 22 points on 18 shots is nothing to be like throwing a party about, but it's it's more than good enough. Especially given how efficient he was able to let the rest of the crew be. I mean, he threw some audacious passes in this game, Justin.
Yeah.
The alley-oop to Evan that Evan finished with the offhand going away from the hoop was one of the more insane oops I've seen a Cavaliers player throw and receive.
I need your vote here. What was more insane, the pass or the finish? Because I go back and
it was the finish.
It was the finish.
That was ridiculous. How did he get that?
Evan had 2 of them, man. He had that one, and he had the drive. I think it was over Pirtle, where I thought he was going to go left-handed hook, and somehow he managed to knife his body around and dunk. Where I was like, how did you get there, right? And I think
Pirtle was very much properly in the way.
he was that might have been the perfect description of his night. He was in the way.
If you ever want to know whether plus minus lies, Jakob Pirtle with a 0 plus minus in his 21 minutes. I couldn't believe that because I did not think he had a very good game.
Yeah, I thought that Evan's performance was overall like just fantastic. I thought he was aggressive throughout the night. I thought he picked his spots really, really well. I think that was the most important thing. I thought he was really, really mature, attacking the advantages when they were there. Obviously, this is
when nasty Justin. Don't forget nasty. He buried Scotty under the hoop 2 different times. One time he just finished over him. Another, he was able to throw a nice little pitch pass to a relocating Jared Allen. Like, that's the level of Evan that I want to see, like a decisive and nasty player who, unlike his counterpart on the other side of the floor, and Scotty Barnes was able to score through
Yeah.
his opposition.
Well, here's the thing. In all fairness to Scotty, when you're playing without a point guard and you have to do a lot of initiation, there is going to be a heavier burden on you. But I thought Evan did a perfect job of picking his spots. He was dominant on the defensive end of the floor, really impacting a lot of these shots. And we talked about pace, we talked about transition. That these are going to be kind of those key team area aspects of who wins these games and how long the series goes. But Evan Mobley outplaying Scotty Barnes or even playing them to a draw, if that's the way this series goes, it's going to be short. It's going to be 4 or 5 games if that's in fact what continues. And I thought, despite Scotty kind of getting some late game production when the game was out of hand, I thought Evan thoroughly outplayed him.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did. I thought this was Evan's maybe a top 3 or 4 defensive game from Evan all year. Just completely stonewalled Scotty in isolation. The shots were kind of no chance push shots from Scotty that, like, I guess maybe they would go in, but they were like 30% type shots for a guy who prides himself on getting all the way to the rim and finishing through people. I thought his help defense was phenomenal. I won't pretend to be like some basketball savant. Like, sometimes I feel like it's just easier to see great on-ball defense or like blocks. I felt like I saw him dissuade like 10 Raptors shots. And part of that is how poor of shooters that the Raptors had out there that Evan felt so safe to go do that. But I just thought his timing was really, really good, of like leaving a second early when the guy was going to get beat, hanging till the last minute when the on-ball player's man was staying with him well enough, like just enough to dissuade, stopped, didn't overhelp. The fact that Pirtle only got 2 field goal attempts up is pretty great. Mamu only got 3 field goal attempts up. You just didn't see a lot of garbage man play. And I thought that was one of the Raptors' big roads to victory was, point of attack gets broken and they're able to get downhill, and the big has to help. And even if the Cavs are playing soft, that the Raptors could, if things all went well, they'd be able to make the little shovel passes in really tight corridors. And then these big, strong bigs and Pirtle and Barnes would be able to kind of just wrecking ball their way into a clean angle when they got a catch near the rim. Like, it just didn't feel like those attempts were there for them. And I think a big part of it was Evans' contributions defensively.
Yeah, defense is always tough to analyze because so much of it is a collective effort, right? And I think the fact that the Cavs knew their assignments defensively, that the communication was a whole lot better, helped put Evan in a position to succeed, right? Like, he's not scrambling to cover up for complete breakdowns the way that we've seen in some of these regular season games. I think the overall team effort helped Evan be in position to have as much impact as he has. And I think, overall on the season, with the exception of when he was battling that calf issue, I think Evan was just as good defensively this year as he was in the past. But I feel like when the team is working this well collectively as a unit on the defensive end, it just helps Evan take his defense to that next level. And you feel this level of impact, which felt more frequent last year, right? Where kind of the Cavs maintained their shell defensively a little more consistently. They just look like a team that was in sync. And we know that teams move fastest when everyone's in sync, because Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together so your work flows like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. Obviously, a big part of maintaining that shell defensively and keeping everybody in their groove was going to be how the Cavs handled the Brandon Ingram assignments. I don't think it was a surprise that Kenny Atkinson went with Dean Wade as the starter. I actually felt really good about our series preview where we were talking about what we'd like to see. The rotation basically played out exactly how we thought, right? that it would be Dean starting. Evan goes to the bench first. Dean pairs with Jared Allen as the power forward. And then as we go to that small lineup without Dean out there, we have both Max Strus and Jalen Tyson along with Evan Mobley. That smaller lineup for the Cavs was terrific. Played 7 minutes together, had a plus 20 net rating and a 106.7 defensive rating. Really, really good early returns of a small ball lineup versus a team where they have a good amount of size, right? Like they're going to be able to challenge some of those smaller lineups. But I thought when it came to the Brandon Ingram assignment, Dean, for the most part, did a really good job staying in front of him. There was one time where he got to the line because
how many field goal attempts did Brandon Ingram have in this game? If you don't have it up right now,
I don't have it.
Yes.
Ooh, 12.
9. He only got one field goal attempt in the second half.
Well, see, that's what I like because I thought for the most part, the Cavs forced him into kind of those mid-range shots. They didn't allow him to get to the basket. There weren't a lot of situations where he forced a double and help. And the couple instances where he did force help, I thought that the Cavs kind of showed and recovered really quick rather than committing to a firm double. I thought they did a really good job of that. But the thing is, when you're forcing Brandon Ingram into those tougher shots, just kind of historically knowing the type of player that BI is, he doesn't want to work that hard for 40 minutes in a game. And I think that was reflected in the field goal attempts in the second half, where you're not giving him those leak out opportunities or the easy cuts to the basket where he can kind of supplement and keep himself going. If he has to work that hard for every single basket, he starts to take himself out of the game a little bit. And while
they also just attacked his dribble a little bit more. I felt like it was more. I felt like they were trying to guard against, like, I don't know. This is a weird way to say it, and this might not be 100% right. You got to give me a little like post game pod grace. But like I felt like in the first half, a lot of it was trying to stop him from getting to the spot, as opposed to just challenging him the second the ball went down. And like
Right.
Max just got like on that play where he stepped out of bounds on the baseline or on the sideline. Like Max just got into the dribble and said, "Hey, I'm gonna make this annoying for you, and I'm gonna challenge how tight your dribble is, being a 6'10", 6'11" player." And I thought that was a big part of why it was harder for him to get the catches and get to those spots, because they weren't, they weren't letting him get these clean dribble to my spot and then get up into him. He didn't even get to the spot as easily.
I had the exact same thing in my notes. I think that was the difference between how Jalen Tyson defended BI and how Max Strus defended him, because Max was really attacking that dribble and kind of doing, we've talked about this before, right? When you're giving up size, make guys uncomfortable, right? Like get into the dribble, throw them off the rhythm. It's why Tony Allen was one of the best Kevin Durant defenders despite giving up that much length. And that was one of the things that we had as a criticism of Isaac Okoro too, right? Where, yeah, you're staying in front of guys and forcing contested shots, but are you making them uncomfortable? I thought Max did a really, really good job of that. Whereas Jalen Tyson, that first kind of shift that he had, he was really struggling, particularly navigating those screens. I thought he was
taking too wide of angles.
Yeah, and two of those 3 fouls that he had in the first half, I think were maybe a little 50-50, but I think part of them were a product of getting there late, right? Just like passers are going to find you as a cutter when you cut with a purpose and you're showing movement, refs are going to see contact when you're coming up late, when the guy's rising up for a shot, you're just arriving and then you're hitting someone on the arm. That's going to be officiated differently than if you're already in position and that same amount of contact occurs. I think that's kind of one of those key things. And I thought Jalen, for the most part, the shift he had in the second half was a lot better. I'll be interested to see kind of what his minutes look like and what a full shift looks like from him if he's not, in foul trouble and missing the shots that he did take. But I did feel like from a rotation standpoint, he seems like the 8th right now. He seems like the guy that Kenny's going to go to after Sam and Max.
Yeah, I think so too. As long as he earns it, he had a rough game, a rough debut. The shots came up a little fast. Obviously the defense was an adventure, but the cool thing about Jalen, because there are certain guys where if I see that, I'm just like, rut-row, not ready for the show, But I feel like because of the season Jalen had, where he started out so rough and then just kind of found his footing over time and a light bulb switch. Like, I don't feel that same level of concern. I think he's just got to take a little time to adjust. And like, talk about a great environment to adjust is when the rest of the team is killing the team you're playing. So
Yeah.
I don't feel terribly concerned about that. But to that end, I will say, don't know if this is a good. The Ingram matchup is a good matchup for him on the best day. I do think it's probably if I'm going the rest of the series, it's probably going to be Dean and Max, and occasionally Evan if he's ever not out there with Scotty at the same time. But that is the only thing I would say is I'd almost rather him go after the RJ Barretts or the other guards on the team defensively.
I think that's fair. I'm interested to see what they do to get him going, because I do think that Jalen Tyson is going to be important in this playoff run. I think the fact that you're able to weather the storm in a game where, the whistle probably wasn't in the Cavs' favor, not from like a one-sided standpoint, but I think from a style of play, the way that the Cavs want to play, allowing a little bit more physicality on their end would have played into their hands defensively. Like I think a typically officiated playoff game, the Cavs, what they were doing defensively would be even more effective. So I think when you're in that type of environment where you're weathering the storm with an abnormal shooting game from the Toronto side with two poor shooters going off, Brandon Ingram hitting some tough shots, Jalen Tyson, Sam Merrill not necessarily having productive games as shooters, I think that a lot of what the Cavs did in this game is sustainable. Now, I don't expect Max Strus to go off to the same extent that he did, but there's trade-offs, right? I think James is capable of playing better. I think Sam's capable of playing better. It just felt like, from a process standpoint, if the Cavs are able to show discipline and stick with this approach on both ends, Toronto's going to have a tough time coming up with those counter punches and with those adjustments. I don't know necessarily.
And a lot of those adjustments, I think, are going to open up the bigs. Like, one thing you might point to, if I just was box score watching and I didn't actually watch the game, I might look to 16 combined field goal attempts for Jarrett and Evan and go, that a problem? I don't think it was in this game. I think that they were staying home and for the most part making it really a challenge for those guys to get a lot of free rim runs. They weren't interested in doing that, and as a result, the Cavs killed them from three. And the two guards were able to get to the rim pretty comfortably and with pretty clean angles. I think the second Toronto starts, maybe Toronto might react and start trying to take away the penetration a little bit more and make things a little harder on the guards. I do think that does open the door for the bigs to start eating a lot more usage than they ate in this game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some of that was a reaction to how the Cavs started the game, right? Like I thought the way that they were feeding Jared Allen early caused the Raptors to panic. They're like, we need to start taking this away.
Yeah.
Even Evan had
dunks are so demoralizing.
Especially the ones that Jared Allen was throwing down, right? Like it was.
Evan had two of the craziest dunks I've seen them throw down. They must have been feeling good going into this game.
It was just a 1-2. All right, we're up and we're taking off, right? And I think it's great to see Jarrett look this good physically, particularly understanding, hey, you're playing on Monday, but you're basically getting a 1.5 days of rest because this was an earlier tip off. Then you're getting an extra day of rest before game 3. I think this is really kind of conducive to managing the knee tendonitis and making sure that he's going in the right direction. But I feel like the field goal attempts from the bigs and the touches that they were getting were a result of that early pressure from the bigs, right? Like I think it started inside out, and Toronto got so scared of that, kind of understanding, hey, we can't have Yak defending in space here. If these guys are getting downhill, if it's opening up that big to big passing, we do not have an ability to defend this in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to live with this as the alternative. So I agree with you. I think some of the adjustments that they could make, right? Like one of the things that they kind of teased and talked about that they might do is putting Scotty Barnes on Donovan Mitchell or James Harden. You're doing that, and all of a sudden RJ Barrett is defending Evan Mobley, and you can kind of take advantage of him in those situations. And all of a sudden RJ and Yak are trying to defend in space in pick and roll situations and deal with the Cavs' two big men tandem, I think they're in a lot of trouble. I don't think that that's a trade-off that I would feel comfortable with unless they're forcing James and Donovan to pick up the ball and preventing that pass from occurring in the first place. Because once that pass is received, if it's on point, Cavs are probably scoring in those possessions.
Yeah, man. They were so good in this game, and I do think it's probably time to talk. Well, really, we haven't even talked about Donovan or Max yet, which is crazy. Dealer's choice. Who do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Don because I thought he was terrific. Obviously made some NBA history here with his 9th consecutive 30-point game one, which is just ridiculous, right? Like he has been such a consistent tone setter for the Cavs. And I think part of the reason why, even in series where things haven't gone great, they've always had at the very least, a puncher's chance in those game ones. I thought, he did a really good job getting into the teeth of the defense, getting downhill, and that's going to be the most important thing. I thought from a usage standpoint, it was the perfect balance of kind of play finishing and then capitalizing off of that without relying on him to do too much dribbling and to do too much creation in the half court. When we talk about managing Mitchell's load and helping him be as efficient as possible, I think this game is like example number one that I would point to in the Harden era.
Yeah, 31 minutes in the game, 20 field goal attempts, which is, it's Donovan Mitchell. He's not going to have less than 15. I thought he picked his spots really well. Do you have any lineup data for any Don at the 1 minutes that you could pull up while I filibuster?
I can pull that while you filibuster, yeah.
Because I do feel like I felt like a big bellwether for this team is like, do they have to play Dennis or is it nice if they play Dennis? Because I thought Donovan's minutes at the 1 felt like they went well, felt like there wasn't a lot of just attacking set defenses. And did they not go well?
It went really well.
Oh, great. Don't tell me.
So there were 9 minutes where Donovan was out there without James Harden or Dennis Schroeder. The Cavs had a 145 offensive rating and a plus 40 net rating, plus 9 overall. So again, when you're talking about a 9-minute sample, plus 9 can equal a plus 40 net rating. But to your point, really good on both ends of the floor.
I just think that's so important. And I thought he had a nice playmaking game. Like you look at 4 assists and 4 turnovers and you go, oh man, it must have just been, just a scoring game. I don't think that was the case. I thought he moved really, really well. I thought he was active off ball in all the ways you want to see him be. Those high screens that the Cavs were setting, I think those are really good for Donovan. I feel like when they set a screen for him right at the 3-point line, it just compresses things and makes the reads a little harder. But if you're setting one 5-6 feet outside of the 3-point arc, he gets the head of steam. He gets that running back energy. Where he's able to kind of just make easier decisions, and he's able to get above the rim as a finisher and kind of negate some size disadvantages he might otherwise have around there. I thought he was amazing. And that was with him missing a couple of almost backbreaker threes. He took a few of them where I'm like, oh man, if this one goes in, this game's going to go off the rails, and
a couple where it looked like it almost slipped out of his hands around the rim, right? Where he didn't necessarily get a paint touch on the rim at all. I think the really interesting thing about those lineups, one, I'm thrilled to see that the most used of those combinations was the one that I kind of earmarked as I think this lineup could rock, and we can kind of build a point guard in the aggregate here, where it's Donovan Mitchell with Sam Merrill, Jalen Tyson, Max Strus, and Evan Mobley, right? Like from a rotation standpoint, I think that's enough secondary playmaking, and it allows you to lean on Evan as a bit of a hub in those spots. That was the best of the bunch, right? Like that lineup had a 146 offensive rating. It just absolutely ripped, played really, really well. But what I find interesting is that you have this 9-minute sample of Don without a point guard, and the Dennis Schroeder minutes were largely coming with James Harden, where we kind of felt like that in particular was a
How many
lineup.
minutes did Schroeder play just in mop-up time? Was it like three minutes probably? Something like that?
I don't think he played in mop-up time.
Did he not? No, it was Craig that played mop-up time.
Yeah, it was Craig that played.
Sorry.
So Schroeder's minutes basically all came in meaningful minutes, right? He played in the second quarter and he played in the fourth quarter. The one thing I'm keeping an eye on, kind of looking at that 12-minute mark, is how much of that was the result of Jalen Tyson foul trouble, because I
I'm
do
not
think
sure.
that threw a little bit of a wrench. But I think what we were thinking ended up being accurate, where Dennis is going to be that 10th man. He's not going to play in the first quarter. He's going to play in the second. He'll maybe play in the fourth if the game is calling for it.
Did Keon get first quarter minutes either, or was he only
No.
second with Dennis as well?
Yeah, Dennis and Keon came in the second quarter, which I kind of anticipate that being the rotation here.
I generally agree. If Dennis is going to be out there, if you're going 10, I think those two coming in, not trying to play 10 guys in one quarter is folly. I feel like he can't do that.
Yeah. So I think that also sets itself up well to Kenny getting these guys getting a proper length shift, right? Like Keon getting to play 7 minutes in the second quarter. I feel like he's not looking over his shoulders if he's making a mistake and playing tentative as a result of that. You get a real feel for how these guys are playing, and you can make your decisions on who gets to play when in the second half based on how those lineups are working in the first half. So I prefer that to trying to play 10 guys in the first quarter, because as you said, it gets a little too tight in those situations.
Yeah, I thought so too. Let's talk about Max. Oh my God. What a cool game for him. Obviously coming off this nightmare year where he's, the lowest of the low is rehabbing all year. It's a lonely time. You wonder if you're going to be able to come back and help. You come back into the regular season very late in the year, maybe a little slow-footed. You have a couple really good games, but man, was he phenomenal on both ends. 24 points in 24 minutes, 4 of 6 from 3, gets the line 4 times, 4 of 4 from 2-point range. Just absolutely phenomenal on both ends of the floor. Thought he moved his feet pretty darn well defensively. And did just about everything you would ask from him. And I think even if Dean is starting games, he might still be the closer. I mean, we'll see. But if he's going to play like this, he's going to be closing games.
Right. And that was basically their second most used lineup, right? Which was the core 4 along with Max Strus.
So he started, he finished the first half, right? Yes.
Yeah, he finished the first half, and he was also kind of that closing lineup as well, right? And I think that's one of the advantages of starting Dean, is you do get to manage Max's minutes and make sure that he is available. And frankly, you can go do the same for Dean, right? I think if you wanted to close with Dean Wade, you would have been able to do that as well. But that lineup was really, really good for the Cavs. And Max, what I love about Max and why he's just always been one of my favorite kind of role players for them is his ability to contribute in so many different areas. He has that basketball IQ, right? His awareness, his spacing on both ends of the floor is usually so sound. It's been tough at times seeing him come back from this injury where he doesn't have the same foot speed to contribute defensively like he has in the past. But to your point, I thought he was making up for it and anticipating for it really, really well. And it almost reminded me of earlier in the season where you could tell Tyson was struggling with his foot speed defensively, and he just started anticipating a little bit better, right? He's getting that first step, almost anticipating rather than reacting, and cutting off the ball handlers, right? And I thought the attacking the dribble, particularly with BI, was very important. Thought he made Scotty uncomfortable a lot of times.
And boy, was Scotty getting away with some offhand contact on Max. He shoved him to the ground a couple times.
When the Raptors offense completely went off the rails because they abandoned everything, and the entire offense was Scotty's going to post up Max and he's going to elbow him 7-8 times on a possession while everyone else stands around. That was the entire thing that they were doing, and it was their largest drought of the game.
And great work by the Cavs in that stretch of digging, showing just enough help to make Scotty throw the ball out, but not allowing open threes.
And I think that was an important display of trust on the defensive end, right? When we were talking about some of those overhelping breakdowns that the Cavs had in the regular season, one of the questions we had was, where's the trust level at? We're like, are we overhelping not by design, but because this isn't working out. And I thought that they showed a lot of trust in, Max Strus, Jalen Tyson, and even James Harden doing a good job on those switches. There was a couple times where Scotty was trying to post up Harden. They showed, as you said, but they didn't overcommit. They didn't give Scotty those easy passes in those situations. I thought Harden did a really good job in those spots. I thought Max did a really good job in those spots. And again, that's one of those advantages when you're comparing, what you moved on from with Darius Garland and James Harden. Harden's ability to post up defensively in those situations is a real advantage. And I thought, this type of matchup in particular, where you do have a team that plays with this level of physicality, it just really goes to show what a difference having James Harden can make.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think before we sign off on this one, we should talk about what game 2 might look like. Things the Raptors might change, and I do think we should start with Scotty Barnes defensively. He drew the Evan Mobley assignment, tried to help, tried to switch, but James and Donovan just cooked the Raptors perimeter defenders. Do we expect Scotty to be given the Donovan or the James assignment in game 2?
The thing is, like, as productive as both of those guys were, it never felt like, oh my God, like we need to try to shut off. Like, when Jalen Brunson really gets going and it's like, God, we just need to get someone on there. James and Donovan dominated within the flow of the game. So,
yeah.
Like, if you're Toronto and you are putting Scotty on one of them, which one do you pick? Like, probably James, right?
Yeah, I just wouldn't do it. I think that's like, I saw a lot of Raptors Twitter saying that's like the lever they need to pull. And it's like, I just would rather have him as a help guy and a switch guy. And just, Evan took 2 threes and made one of them. I think the other one was a heave at the end of a broken play, shot clock situation. But like, I actually don't think that really solves much. And it's hard to evaluate just because the game was kind of over by the time he was guarding Donovan or James. But neither of those guys seemed all that bothered by him being switched on them. They were still able to get that, they were able to set those high screens and have him trailing, and they were able to turn the corner. So I don't know. I feel like they just have to defend better. And like, sometimes as a coach, you're going to have to decide, do I have to make a scheme change or do we just need to execute better? And like, sometimes you're going to have to execute over your head a little bit when you're at a talent deficit. And just because your strategy isn't working doesn't mean that you have to throw out everything. Like, I don't think the Raptors scheme sucked or anything. I didn't watch them and laugh at Darko's game plan. I just think Cavs have a lot of talent. The Raptors have a little bit less, and the Cavs executed at a really high level, and that's hard to beat.
I think the one adjustment, if I'm Toronto, what I would do is I'm not starting Jamal Shed. I know he shot very well, but I think you have to go to Jacoby Walter. I think he does a better job on Donovan than Shed can. And Shed had a couple possessions on Harden where, unless he's hitting him with an uppercut for no reason, like he's not doing anything to bother James. Yeah, just a common foul. It's fine. You're allowed
common
to swing.
Uppercut.
That looked like Thrag on Nolan there. It was very upsetting to me. But, if you look at it, so Toronto, with this abnormal shooting performance from both Scotty Barnes and Jamal Shed, what would you guess that their offensive rating was for that starting five?
Not good. I'm going to say 103.
Is 107, right? But on the defensive end, they were giving up 147. They got absolutely smoked. Like I think,
and that tracks with and that's with like the first shift being a pretty much dead draw.
Right. I think they actually won their minutes, right? So that's absolutely brutal. And I think I would go with Jacoby Walter. I said it when we were doing our series preview. I thought if Emmanuel Quickley isn't available, they need to go with Jacoby Walter, because you look at the lineup data for the season, that lineup with Jacoby is a -3. The one with Shed is a -62. And now it's a -40 here in the playoffs, right? Like I just think you're making it too easy for the Cavs to defend you. Even on a game where we're cheating off of guys and the guys we're cheating off shoot the hell out of the basketball, you're still not able to muster a good offensive performance. And when you talk process over results, if the results are outweighing the process and the results still suck, you got to get away from that. And I think that's why I would go with Jacoby Walter and try to play it straight up. The only other thing that you might do is see how much CMB you can get away with rather than Jakob Pertl. I thought that the two
I
guys
wonder
that
if they make that swap, because CMB had a very nice game, 14 points on 8 shots in 20 minutes.
Like, he's a really good player. I like him a
guard
ton.
wasn't as impactful guarding as Raptors Twitter, because Raptors Twitter is, we'll talk about him like he's their Draymond,
Yeah.
and will kind of change games defensively. Not, and again, I have not watched enough Raptors, but I did not see that level of impact. But I thought he was really good in the in between spaces, and just like at least was willing to look at the rim, which Yak was not.
Yeah, and the I think it's a tough thing for him just because he's giving up so much size to Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, and I don't think that, like, what he's able to do defensively, I think he's used to maybe seeing one of those guys, but not a lot of these two big configurations where they are so proficient at the big to big passing and kind of the drop off stuff. But the two sores that the Cavs picked at the most were RJ Barrett and Jakob Pertl. Let's get Jakob up into space because we kind of feel like he is not comfortable there, right? Even in times where the bigs weren't scoring on him, getting him up defensively allowed Max Strus or Donovan Mitchell to get to the basket before he had the opportunity to come in and recover. The other thing was RJ Barrett. Like, they would hit him with 2-3 screens on a possession, and he's not a good screen navigator. He's one of the worst off-ball defenders in basketball. But because, like, they don't have a lot of good options, you can't really go to Grady Dick in that situation. That's just something that they're going to have to live with. So if you're trying to ride the RJ Barrett wave because maybe he can get the Cavs defense into rotation and he can provide you with some offense.
And he was very good in this game, by the way, 24 points on 13 shots.
Right. I think the levers you have to pull is considering who you're starting at the point guard position and how much Jakob Pertl are we going with versus CMB. I think that those are what I anticipate the Raptors pulling.
I'll tell you one thing that they just need from an execution standpoint. Mamu was a guy I really had my eyes on for the series as a potential irritant. He's got good size. He's a good shooter. He's not afraid to try stuff. It's like the kind of role player I think the Cavs sometimes have a hard time with because he'll drag the bigs out. And
games versus us in the regular season.
And he was awful in this game. 2 really, really bad fouls. Or 2 or 3 really, really bad fouls. He had 5 fouls in his 20 minutes. Only got 3 shots up total. I think like that is, if you're looking for things that like, hey, maybe this will be better for the Raps in game 2. I think their bench just in general, you'll get a little bit more. But they were very starter heavy in this game, so I don't know. But Mamu kind of has to be good and has to be a swing player for them. Because what he does, if he's playing well, he does make it easier to play Pertl maybe 5-10 minutes as opposed to the 20 he played, and makes it a little easier to play CMB as a defensive player. But yeah, he had a bad game, and I think in a lot of ways, like the Raptors just kind of need everyone to have good games, or most of them to have good games. And like Scotty having the game he had, where at one point he's like 1 of 7 from 3, from 2. Like those are things that are just going to be too high of a mountain to clear for this Raps team.
Yeah, if you're in a game where Evan Mobley is outplaying Scotty Barnes, you are not allowing them to score in transition, and you are outscoring them in the paint, that is going to be a Cavs win.
It was just free throws and threes for them. That's what went well.
And these are the fun types of podcasts, and these are the fun types of situations to be in, where we're not talking about the adjustments. We just showed that our first punch is better. Let's see what the Toronto can do to try to counteract that, and whether or not adjustments are needed from the Cavs standpoint. Like, I'm sure Kenny is going to throw some wrinkles. You don't ever want your opponent to feel comfortable, but I think what the Cavs did for an initial game plan is sustainable. I think it was the right approach. I feel really, really good about it. And it just helps me feel more confident, man. I'm so excited that we're here in the playoffs, and I'm so excited that we are going live after every one of these damn games. Or if we're not going live after the game, we are at least going to have a post-game podcast for each of these games. We will let you guys know ahead of time because I don't want to be accused of not going live because of the result or anything like that. We will say it on the podcast prior, okay? We are going to say it if there's a scheduling conflict, but we will be trying to go live after all of these games. I'm so excited to be at this time of year, Carter.
Yeah, me too, man. Playoffs are back. I listen to Pitbull tell me all about the playoffs. Jump shot, dribble, free throw, layup, or whatever his lyrics are in that remix of Timber. It's nice to be back, baby. Now let's stop podcasting so I can watch Nuggets T-Wolves. We're at half.
All right. Well, big thanks to everyone tuning in on live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, clicking that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.